We've been keeping track of the initiatives lawmakers did not pass during their 2-month legislative session. One of those is a bill that would have helped human trafficking victims. That bill died, and some say Florida's powerful hotel industry may be to blame. Nightside reporter Liz Crawford met a human trafficking survivor who was trafficked and sold inside of hotels for years.
Yeah, it was so disturbing. I have to be honest, when I first heard Savannah Parview's story, I knew I had to meet her. I really thought to myself, people need to hear this girl's story. People need to know that this is happening in Florida hotels every single day.
Well, I actually wrote this a couple years ago. If only people knew the things that happened in room 112, it was her own living hell. At the beginning of each month, it became a sex shop. Not the kind that you see while driving down the road. This was a store where she was bought and sold. It didn't matter who you were or how old. If you had $10, to you I was sold. For just that small fee, men could do whatever they pleased. She was locked in the room with no way out. It didn't do any good to scream or shout.
Savannah Parview was sold for sex from the time she was a young girl.
I was 11. My trafficker, who was my mom's drug dealer, he would take me and he would have people come to the hotel.
In Central Florida, just 30 miles from the most magical place on earth.
He would arrange for the staff to open up the door to let people in. Like, I didn't even have shoes, and so I was walking down the hall with no shoes on. I had bruises on me, I was bleeding, crying, and they didn't say anything. They didn't try to help me.
Savannah's come a long way since those dark years. Now, at 30 years old, she's a survivor leading a charge to help victims.
There were times when my trafficker would leave me locked in the room.
She's been to Tallahassee fighting for a bill that would make hotels accountable for turning a blind eye to sex trafficking. It would also require training for hotel staffs so they can spot human trafficking and alert authorities.
I've thought about how if somebody had done something to help me then, I wouldn't have been trafficked as long as I had. And I wouldn't have had to have a hysterectomy a couple months ago if somebody stepped in to help me.
The proposed law was on the fast track to pass until suddenly it was mysteriously postponed. Last week, attorneys and survivors gathered in Tampa demanding lawmakers reconsider this bill.
Unfortunately, we can only assume that the bill was stalled as a result of politics as usual and lobbyists.
Advocates say Florida's powerful hotel industry is secretly opposed to the bill.
We know that Disney is the leader and the epicenter of Florida's hotel and lodging industry, and we have yet to hear from them as to their position on this bill.
A dark side to Florida's sunny image.
Because remember, we are the family-friendly state, aren't we? We're the state that we say, come, we're safe.
I was being sold out of a hotel in Central Florida.
Despite the letdown from lawmakers.
And so I thought about what happened during that time, and
Savannah Parview says she'll continue to fight for victims.
What the staff could have picked up on.
Sharing her story
in order to help me.
From the living hell in room 112 to room 101 in her church, filled with people who finally want to listen.
The more people that talk about it, the more awareness it's gonna spread.
Well, a spokesperson with Disney did send us a statement. It says in part, we would be supportive of legislation that enacts appropriate measures to address this problem. In addition, we continue to work closely with law enforcement and organizations like the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children.